This is Houston Newsmakers Extra. I am joined by Robin Cole and Anna Lakutis Zafiris, President and Vice Presidents of the Society of Justice and Equality for the People of Sugar Land. And you shorten that by saying what?
SOJES.
SOJES. I like that. We've been talking about the Sugar Land 95 and the plans to remember and educate about the convict leasing projects that led to their deaths. Talk a little bit about that. We didn't really get into that in the show in terms of the convict leasing program. This was, the state of Texas said, this is fine. Initially, yes. The state of Texas sanctioned this, right?
Yes, they did. And so when you look at the history, many times you don't see who was responsible for growing the sugar cane. These convicts who were innocent people, they used their labor, they used their mind, they used their experience as chemical operators. I'm a chemical engineer, so I know what it takes when you work in a refinery. They had this knowledge of how to take sugar cane and turn it into molasses, into rum, into, of course, sugar. But when you do a Google on who built the city of Sugar Land, what you see is Mexicans, Spaniards, and American pioneers and Indians. You see no reference to African Americans.
One of the things I think is interesting, Anna, is that the convict leasing program came about shortly after slavery was outlawed, and it was a kind of a way to kind of keep the bondage thing going, but in a way that it would be, quote, legal within the state of Texas, and they'd be able to get something out of it for the businesses where these convicts were being leased.
That's exactly right, because after the Civil War, the economy of the South was basically destroyed from loss of people fighting and also the loss of slavery. Slavery was abolished, and so what happens to this devastated economy? Where is the labor force? And so these black codes were quickly originated, which could arrest someone, a black person or anyone for that matter, for being unemployed, for being an orphan, for walking on the wrong side of the street, for anything. And the other thing is, that was the arrest portion, but then you look at the judge, jury, and executioner was all white judges and juries. So the fix was in, and the labor source was revived.
And as I looked at it too, some of the people who were in for X number of time, if they had like 2 years, for example, oftentimes there would be some sort of infraction while they were in the camp, that they would get extra time tacked on. So it made it difficult for them to get out of this. So what are the history lessons that you want people to take away from this? Just not just visiting the area, because we want people to visit this area in Sugar Land, but what do you want them to take away?
Yeah, the takeaway is the recognition that African Americans were instrumental in this whole sugar production for the United States, not just Texas, not just Sugar Land, because without the land and without people working the land, and it was said that sugar plantations were harder than cotton plantations and corn, and you couldn't pay anybody to work on a sugar plantation. And so that's why the state of Texas, they had to find a way to enslave black labor. And so I want the takeaway to be, the history needs to be told. Who lives, who dies, who tells the story. We need that story to be told.
And now the goal is to continue to build. We talked in our program about the chances for having a museum, and now an educational center, you want to do that as well. Talk about what your efforts are in terms of fundraising to try to make that happen.
Well, it's our goal to raise $20 million to construct and operate a national convict leasing museum and the Reginald Moore Educational Center. So when guests come to visit, they are able to experience the magnitude of this monumental human rights discovery. But not only experience that discovery, but to come out through a spirit of awareness and consciousness that this truth-telling, this telling the whole story, will also lead us all as a community to heal and on a path to justice. So this never has to ever happen again.
You mentioned Reginald Moore in the program as well. Talk about him, because he was one of the people who first sounded the siren, if you will, about this.
Yes, so Reginald Moore, he actually worked in one of the prisons in Richmond, Texas, and when he saw that those conditions were deplorable, and this was only 15 years ago, he started doing research. And all of his research led to his material being housed at Rice University. And unfortunately, he passed away last year, so we're carrying the baton for him. We want to honor him because he communicated that there was a possibility of remains in Sugar Land. And so because of that, when they did discover, when they built the Reese Technical and Career Center in 2018, when they first discovered 2 or 3 or 4, it came to be that what he was saying all along was true. And that's why we want to give honor to him.
So if people want to get involved with this project, they want to help in any way, shape, or form, what's the best way for them to do that?
Go to our website, www.sojesjustice.org.
And that's Sojes, S-O-J-E-S.
Yes.
Justice.org.
Yes.
Good deal. Robin, Anna, thank you so much. This is Houston Newsmakers Extra. Share this with everybody you know. Want to get the word out.